Welcome to the Private Practice Journeys podcast, where mental health professionals learn about the nuts and bolts of private practice by listening to the journeys of 4 therapists that have taken the plunge into private practice. And here's your host, Chris Quarto.
Hi, everyone. This is Chris Quarto. Welcome again to Private Practice Journeys. If you haven't gotten the opportunity to listen to the past Private Practice Journeys podcast episodes, I'd like to encourage you to do that. It's a wonderful series because what we're doing is following 4 therapists who are taking the plunge into private practice. And actually 3 of them have taken the plunge starting in January, and one of them has been in private practice for a long time, but is expanding to group practice. But it's a wonderful way to learn about what happens when you actually go into private practice. Now, if you haven't had the opportunity to listen to the episodes, that's okay, and this will be a good chance to start today with my interview with Lisa Duez, who had been in social work administration for many years and decided, you know what, it's time for me to do this. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. Now is the time. So let's listen to Lisa and see how things are going for her in her second month of private practice. Hi, Journey followers. Welcome again to Private Practice Journeys. I'm your host, Chris Quarto. Well, this is a podcast series where I interview 4 therapists who are taking the plunge into private practice, and I interview them once a month throughout 2017. And today I'm joined by Lisa Duez. And hey, Lisa, how's it going?
Pretty good, Chris. How are you?
Pretty good. And I know that you're kind of battling the traffic out there in Virginia today. And
yeah,
hopefully...
a little bit.
Okay.
But I'm good now.
All right. Well, hopefully you'll be able to make it to your destination okay. Well, listen, what I want to do today is, this is the second time that you've been on this podcast series. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to update the listeners once a month, obviously, on what's going on with the 4 of you. And this is your opportunity to get to do it for the month of February. And as I had mentioned on another episode, my motto is growing by learning. And so I think that all of us can have a lot to learn who are either starting private practices or expanding practices. And so I want to ask you some questions today about your learning, Lisa, over this past month. And just to kind of update the listeners, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you were... I guess up to a month ago, you were in more of an administrator role. Is that correct?
I was, but I have finished that role as of the 27th of January.
Okay.
So now I'm a full-time business owner.
Ooh, all right.
I know.
Very exciting.
I know.
So,
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that the Journey followers remembered what your story was. And so let's start off today. I want to start off by talking about something that I call learning by doing. And just kind of taking a look at where you've been over the past month. If you can just kind of consider some activity pertaining to your business that you've tackled over the past month that you feel like, hey, I feel a little bit more confident about a business owner than I did when I first started off. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. The thing that immediately comes to mind is billing. So I don't know if I shared is that I had made the decision to, at least in the short term, be my own biller.
Okay.
Because I felt like I needed to know every aspect of my business.
Right.
And so I didn't want to hand it off to someone without knowing how to do it. And then what if something happened with her and then I wouldn't know what to do and I wouldn't have any money coming in.
That's right.
So learning by doing for billing was success-wise. I did get paid from insurance companies, so I was doing a happy dance.
Uh-huh.
Still have some things, and the learning by doing is you have to have a system in place.
That's right.
So I had to kind of work on when I would get a referral, get a script, what I needed to ask. For example, I would get the insurance information, but I would forget to ask the date of birth,
All
or I
right.
would forget to ask the address. And so I would miss these components, and then they would come in, and I felt like I was a little, I don't know, not probably my own thing, but not really a client thing, where I was like, hey, I forgot your address, which they never minded, but, I felt like I needed. So I actually developed a little script for myself about what to say because I'm thinking, and I think many people are taking their own phone calls.
Right.
So when I call back, it's a 5-minute conversation that I've perfected, and most people respond, why, first, kind of introducing myself and my philosophy and, what I can help you with, and going from there.
I think
so the learning by doing was that.
I think that's a great idea, Lisa. I think that, I think for most therapists, and I just kind of look back at my own growth as a private practice therapist, and mine was sort of like what you were just saying right there, that I think what happens first is that you have to think about what kind of systems to put in place. And a lot of times, like you were just saying, like with that little script that you came up with, I think that it's very typical to start off in a very structured sort of way. So you have something to follow, and okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And it kind of relieves the stress, I bet, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And once I got it, it goes so much smoother now.
Yeah.
I feel like the conversation flows, and I feel like the connection starts on the phone.
Right.
And I may not always do it that way, but for now and while I'm building, I feel like it's important. For me, at least.
Right. So is there any particular type of information that you want to know from clients when they first call, Lisa? Is there something, beyond the like the address and the phone number, birth date? Is there anything else that you think is important for you as a business owner or as a private practitioner to get from those clients during those initial phone calls?
Obviously, why are they seeking therapy, of course, is important. And then the other part is, I always want to know, I always ask, how did you hear about me?
Oh, so why do you ask that?
Because I want to track my referrals a little bit. Not that I have a lot of referrals coming in yet, but I just want to track, is it Psychology Today, or was it this particular person I left a business card with, or something like that. So I always ask, how did you hear from me, or how'd you hear about me? And, I get a variety of answers. Lets me know that my marketing's working a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And I don't know if you know the answer to this question yet, and that's okay if you don't. I'm just kind of curious, though. What do you plan to do? I mean, once you find out where those referrals are coming from, is there anything that you're going to do with that information, or any kind of follow-up you'll do with that? Or I think that's kind of an interesting question.
I think what I was doing, and what I have been doing, was tracking where I was marketing, which doctor's office.
Yeah.
I have a lot of contacts in the juvenile justice system up here, so where, which probation officers, different things like that. And then, obviously if they're getting a lot of referrals, I want to, somehow, some sort of a thank you.
Yeah.
And then if not, then maybe figure out what's going on here. Maybe I need to make another visit, something like that.
That's great. And
then also, yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it lets me know if my Psychology Today profile is doing okay. I felt like, is it actually speaking to someone? Because I spent hours on that thing.
And you spend money for it, too, I'm sure.
And you spend money for it, too, so you want to make sure. And it's a great investment. It's a great investment. But it's just, you want to make sure it works.
I think,
as I look into other advertisements, I've thought, a way to track,
That's great, because, tracking that kind of information, I think is useful for different reasons. I think one of the reasons that you had mentioned is because it lets you know who's referring to you and who you can thank for providing you with the referrals. Because I think you're probably like me. I don't take anything for granted. I don't take my referral sources for granted. And at the end of the year, every December, I always kind of get the old-fashioned, well, this is kind of an old-fashioned way of doing it, but I go out to Kroger and buy thank you cards and personally handwrite thank yous to every person who made a referral to me over the course of the year. And it takes a long time to do that, but it's worth it because if I didn't have those referrals, I wouldn't have a business. So I think that you don't take those things for granted. But I think the other thing too in tracking data like that, Lisa, is if you find out looking at those the data that you are getting a lot of referrals, let's say from, I don't know, if a person was getting referrals from a couple of pediatricians, and that 80% of the referrals were coming from those two pediatricians, then that means, okay, maybe I had to expand and ask other pediatricians or let them know that I have these services and what I'm doing for pediatricians currently, so perhaps I can get referrals from them as well. So I think that there are a lot of good reasons for doing something like that.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's just the information that you get.
That's right.
You're right. Because somebody said it to me the other day about, that I was talking to a salesperson because I was, trying to figure out my benefits, and now that I'm a self-employed person. But he was saying, you work on commission too. And I was like, oh, you're right. I do work on commission.
That's right. Yeah.
I just get paid by insurance company.
Exactly.
As opposed to he gets paid by sales. And I thought that really sat with me about how I work on commission too. And I thought that was interesting.
It is.
How he said that. Because if you get a bad reputation, they won't come.
Right. Yeah,
and that's what happens?
Well, and it's quite different from your previous job, isn't it? Where you were more or less guaranteed a paycheck. As long as you did your job. I mean, you'd get that steady paycheck. Where here, that's not the case, and you have to produce in order to get that paycheck.
That's the biggest adjustment. You have to produce, and this is a very personal journey. Because you're right. When somebody gives you a paycheck, you can slack off for a day.
Yeah.
I mean, be honest.
Yep.
And I was a government employee, so yeah.
Yeah.
They don't measure productivity too much, but now it's like you look at, okay, how many sessions am I doing? Is that meeting my weekly goal of this many sessions, which would equate to this much revenue? You really have to. It's very different.
Yes. Yeah, I think you have to be more intentional, don't you, about what you're doing in your role as a private practitioner. That makes perfect sense. Well, I imagine that, you've kind of been in this for a month now, or, within this past month, and not everything goes the way that you want it to. And I wonder, kind of segueing into this next section called learning from experience. And you've probably heard that saying like hindsight is 20/20, or if I had it to do over again, this is the way that I would do it. And I wonder if you've had any of those moments, Lisa, in the past several weeks since you've quit the job, or you've been in this transition period and have gone into full-time private practice. Has anything gone that way where you thought, oh, why did I do that? I should have done this?
The biggest adjustment for me has been the schedule, because you're the master of your schedule now, which is a blessing, but also not so much a blessing. So I think in my, wanting to take clients on board because, I have to build my practice, I tried to develop a schedule where I would work until, maybe 7 one night, maybe 7 2 nights a week, or 8. And then I find myself taking a late client on another night.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute, what is he doing?
Right.
You said, this is what you said you wanted. And so it's kind of outside of my own boundaries.
So why did you do that?
I don't know. I think I needed it's the insecurity of being a business owner. It was an ideal client. She was a, good client for me, my type of practice. And I think I did initially offer. I think what I did was I said to her, and this is where I get back to the whole thing about a script. instead of saying to her, when can you come in? And she said Thursday, 7:00. Which I was like, okay, that's great. I should start saying, and I have started to try to say, I have availability Tuesday at 4 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So kind of, and so I've been trying to, work within my time frame, work within what I said I was doing, because you literally could work 70, 80 hours a week in private practice easily.
Right.
I think. And you have to really, nobody works that many hours. I mean, maybe they do, but not for a very long time.
That's right. Well, I think, what you said makes sense. I think that, you want, especially when you're first starting out, I mean, you want to try to get every client you can, right? And, and
so
you don't want to.
that comes in, you're accommodating.
And that's part of your income, obviously, and you don't want to turn anybody away.
You're like, that's another this many dollars.
That's
whatever.
right. But on the other hand, you want to maintain boundaries, so you're not working those, 70-hour weeks as well. And, it's affecting family life and, personal time and all this kind of stuff. So it's a real struggle, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was funny because that particular client came in and talked to me about how she was a workaholic.
Uh-huh.
And I said, okay, I get it now. Okay. I was like, okay, how about coming in next Thursday at 4? And she's like, oh, that's fine. And I'm like, okay, Lisa.
That's yeah.
I get it.
Yes. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I think that when you first start out this way, and the first couple of times that you say to a client, these are the times that I have available. I think for me, I kind of think back to when I did that, and I kind of felt guilty. It's like am I being selfish here, or and shouldn't I be more flexible for clients? And you have all these types of things that go through your head, don't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and I was a little bit guilty, and I think it was, she had come in, and we just, over that phone conversation, I was like, oh, you want to help this lady?
Yeah.
When can you come in? And she's like, oh, gee, whatever she said, and I'm like, okay. I'm thinking, hung up the phone, and I was like, oh, So
well,
I'm trying to get better. This week, the one thing about scheduling and being in private practice is that, and starting out, is that you have, and my suite mate and I were talking about this today, and she's just finishing private practice or just starting up too, but she's about 6 months ahead of me.
Uh-huh.
And she said, you're going to have these morning appointments, and then you're going to have this dead time during the day, and then you're going to have these evening appointments. And that's very true. And so I'm trying to mush them towards the middle of the day if I can.
Sure. I don't
and some of
blame
them
you.
just can't. Yeah.
That's true. And I think eventually you get to a point where you have enough referrals coming in of people who can take those slots that it doesn't present an issue anymore. But I think at first it's a little tougher. And let's look at marketing. Just kind of learning to market. I think that's a big thing for people in private practice too when they're first starting off, and people go about this differently. And I'm just kind of curious, you just kind of starting up at this point in time, what are some approaches, some marketing strategies that you've tried, and which ones seem to be working? I'm not sure if you can even assess that yet, but what are you trying at this point, Lisa?
When I was working full time, I just put myself on Psychology Today and forgot about it, and I would get some referrals, and I just would say, whoever came to me, and because I was still full time. But now I still have that. I developed a Facebook page, and I think I'm going to do a Facebook ad. Here in I'm going to try that. But I think the best thing that works, at least for this area, is just building relationships. Word of mouth, stopping by hospitals, stopping by doctor's offices. So I try to just grab business cards, and I've got some rat cards. And just every day, I told myself at least 4 times a week I wanted to market. Yeah. To somebody. It didn't have to be a major saying, but at least let somebody know I was there. Yeah. And been sticking with that for the most part.
Well, say a little bit. Say a little bit about that, Elisa. You had mentioned relationships, and I wonder, why is it that you think that is important in terms of marketing your services?
I just find that people refer to who they trust. And so, and I guess for me especially, is that I had been in the professional realm in this area for a little bit, so people knew me, and then I was just like, well, now I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And so that helped. And I know there are a lot of people that are in new areas, so that was, that relationship part of it was good for me. It is good for me. And then marketing to pediatricians' office, other therapists, and saying, here is my niche, or niche, however you say it.
Yeah.
I work with this type of client, and so that if you have this type of client, and I can do this, and we can work together.
Sure.
And I think that was helpful, going out for coffee, doctors' offices. Sometimes I stopped by a school and just gave my card, and just I think just being approachable, and
Right. Yeah, because why should anybody refer to you if they don't know who you are? And
right.
I think that, it's easier to develop trust if you have that personal contact with somebody, as opposed to, just kind of sending them something in the mail. Now, I think there is something to be said about sending people items in the mail. We had talked about that on Amanda's podcast episode, but I think that even adding this into the mix of the personal contact, I think that goes a long way, because not everybody who's going into private practice is going to feel comfortable just kind of going up and, going into a doctor's office and maybe asking to meet a doctor, or, whatever the case. But I think that really goes a long way, doesn't it?
It does. And I am one of those comfortable people that will just basically talk to anyone.
Uh-huh.
So good or bad, I went into a doctor's office the other day. I didn't even know anybody. And so then I got an appointment with the doctor to see them later this week. I just wanted to know what they did, and I was like, I come by here all the time for coffee, and I'm going to go back and see them, and I was like, well, how can we work together? Because I know you see this type of client, and I see adolescents, and
sure,
I think that works, but I do want to explore. I think I want my website to perform a little bit better. I need to blog more than what I have been doing, and some of those SEO type things that I don't know too much about. That's kind of my goal, is to learn a little bit more about that. Beef up my website a little bit, and I want to blog, and kind of get that larger audience, because I can't stop by every doctor's office in particular.
No. I mean, there's a limit to doing that kind of stuff. And, I think that it's, if you're strategic about that, I think that that's probably the best way of going about it. I mean, if you know that you want to work with adolescents, and obviously stopping by pediatricians and not, internists and all that kind of stuff. So I think you can be strategic about how you do that. And, you had mentioned the blogging as well. And, it's hard to do everything. And I think that you just try to pinpoint, okay, what are the most essential things for me to do right now to start my business? And, I think what you're talking about, really just developing those relationships, I think that that's probably the best thing to do when you're first starting off in private practice. But, in terms of blogging, I think a lot of people have that same problem. I know that I have that challenge too. And, just finding the time to do that. I just did something the other day. It was a very easy way to blog on I have a supervision website too. And I was thinking, what, kind of what you were just saying, I really should start doing more of this. And so I was taking a walk the other day, and I just decided, I'm just going to dictate into my phone. And I have on
that's good.
on my iPhone 7, it'll just kind of type whatever I dictate. So it's very easy that way. And so just whatever came into my mind, it just kind of free flowed and had ideas in there. And before I knew it, I had a blog. I mean, it was so easy to do. And I think that, trying to come up with ways to make our lives easier like that, using technology actually to do that, I think, all these ways of doing things. But I think that kind of getting back to my point, I think you just have to start off very strategic, looking at, okay, what's the thing I need to do now that I think is going to bring me in the most referrals? And I think the way that you're going about it is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying. I was funny because I had a little moment last week about, I think I had 15 appointments last week. And I think I was having a moment like last Wednesday, and I was like, oh my gosh, I only have 15 appointments. And then I was like, yeah, 15 appointments.
You know what?
I was
just gonna say, I mean, a lot of people are listening to this thinking she already got 15 appointments and she's only been in this for a few weeks. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, I was like, what? Just stop, Lisa, stop.
Yeah. I mean, because you're probably on some of the same Facebook groups that I am, Lisa, where, you have these discussions about, how many appointments do you guys have every week? And what do you consider to be full-time in private practice? And, there's a broad range. I mean, there are people who will say, if I have 10 people a week, 10 clients, I'm fine. Other people will say, 30 or 40. And, it's so individual. You just got to find your own sweet spot. But I think that...
And I don't know what my number is yet, so I'm still... I think it's more than 15 now.
But, having 15 already, I think that's really good. So... Well, let's transition into just kind of learning about finances, because, as a business owner, this is part and parcel to what you do. And I wonder what you've learned just, kind of about money matters, whether it's, about getting paid by clients or insurance or budgeting, paying bills, any of that kind of stuff. What have you learned about over the last several weeks, just kind of being new to all of this, Lisa?
Well, first thing is get a good accountant.
Okay.
I think that's the first thing. I have not personally paid myself yet, but I will be paying myself once I get an accountant.
All right.
Once I meet with my accountant later this week and kind of feel like where I need to go. But I guess there's, I read the same Facebook groups about how much you should put away for taxes and this and that, and I get a little nervous about, well, I put this away for taxes and I put this for my rent, and how am I going to actually, where's my salary? Where's the rest of it?
Right.
I have learned that I have to be very consistent with my billing. I do it every day, at least every other day, which I'm a little nervous about. Like, am I going to be able to keep up with it? And that's when I'll know that I need to get some help. And I think what I have learned is that it's just different. I think, CFO, where I previously worked, she sat down with me and showed me the taxes and stuff like that. And she said, you can pay yourself every day if you want.
Yeah.
And I said, that's kind of nice. And money can be a little intimidating because it's not that guaranteed money. But the other part of it is that you don't have anybody dictating your salary anymore. You can make as much or as little as you want.
That's right.
And so honestly, I'm still exploring a little bit. I just want to learn. I guess I'm a little nervous about paying myself. That's why I feel like I'm using QuickBooks. I'm learning QuickBooks, and I'm going to get a good accountant that's going to steer me in the right direction about my future. And because I do want to grow, but I think money-wise, money is also a very personal thing,
right?
And it can create a lot of anxiety.
It can,
especially for somebody new. And I'm supposed to, if I were to be working at my full-time job, I would be getting paid on Friday. But I'm not getting paid on Friday.
Yes.
So that's like, okay, I have some savings. I'm getting my leave paid out. That's good.
Yeah.
But then what?
Right. Yeah. So it's up to you if you're going to get paid.
Yeah. So we need to do this. Yeah. So it is. It's like, again, a very personal journey.
So why did you decide to go with an accountant? I'm sure some of the Journey followers might be thinking, should I get an accountant or not? Or what made you decide, that might be a good idea for you?
For me, I guess because I just need to learn. Now, I don't know that I am going to have an accountant every month to do my pay or do my draw, I guess is what you would call it.
Mm-hmm.
But I at least want to meet with them quarterly. I think I can do my draw where I put in the right amount of money to give to the federal government and the state government. I could do that. But I think it's just for the checks and balance of, am I putting enough away for taxes?
Mm-hmm.
Am I, putting, what other deductions are out there that I was not aware of? Depreciation of furniture, which I didn't even know, that kind of thing. Just that you just wouldn't even think of.
Exactly.
Rent, just the whole business venture. I've managed programs, but I never managed my own program. I've always taken somebody else's money and managed it, and I have a household budget, but this is different. So,
sure. Yeah.
I needed to find a little bit more information about it, at least initially.
I think that's a good idea. Because you don't know everything at first, and there's no way to know everything at first. And it's really a learning experience. That's why we call this private practice journeys, because it really is a journey to learn a lot of this stuff. And, as part of the journey, you learn a lot about yourself. And I'm kind of wondering what you've learned about yourself in the past several weeks, and how you think that you've grown personally or professionally as you started your practice.
Oh gosh. I think that I have learned, can be very critical of myself. Why don't you have, like I was saying earlier, or you don't have 20 clients.
Yeah.
You only, and I think I've learned to kind of just kind of let it go and, function in a little bit more of, put my energy out there to doing good work and the rest will come kind of thing. And so I've learned to, maybe the word is chill out a little bit.
Sure.
Just a little bit, because I want to be that, I know what I need to do, but, to chill out, to stay organized, and then just, concentrate on my craft and that, I want to do good work for the clients. And if I have that intention of doing good work and I put my best effort into the therapy that I provide, they will come back. And so I had a moment when I was working private practice, when I was working at my full-time job, and then I was driving out opportunities and working from like 5 to 8 every night and doing my private practice. I did that for like a month, which was, it was needed to be done, but I don't know if I would recommend it. But I said, I'm not concentrating on my craft. And I said, I have to concentrate on my craft. I need to have some self-care.
Right.
And I'm proud to say that every one of those clients are back with me. Now, I didn't lose one of them.
Oh, good.
So I would tell them, I'm going through a little transition. I'm going from full-time to part-time. And, they were, oh, wow, that's great. And, they stayed with me, and I think what really was the kicker was I said, just concentrate on providing good therapy, and the rest will come.
That's great advice. That's great advice, because that's what we're all in this for. Is to provide great service to clients, and it's easy. I think it would be very easy to lose sight of that with everything else that you're trying to do as a new private practitioner. That it would be very easy to lose sight of that, but that's really what we're in this business to do. So that's good. And in fact, that's actually good. I was going to ask you, but if you learning and wisdom, if you had just kind of a word of advice or word of wisdom to say to the listeners, that's probably it, is to not lose sight of what you're in this to do, is to serve the clients.
Yeah, because we, all the Facebook journeys talk about, the books talk about, well, what about this insurance company and that's all important. But then at the end of the day, you've got a huge responsibility. And I thought the other day, I had a little existential moment. I thought, these people are getting out of their bed and driving to see me because they think I have value.
Isn't that awesome?
I know, and I was like, you need to start thinking you have value.
That's right.
Like, oh,
That's right. That's
I'm
right.
like, they value your time, so you need to start valuing your time. And that was like about, the whole thing about the, you better stop booking appointments on Thursday nights.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me of when I first went into practice, and the people who hired me to be part of their group practice, and we talked about, well, how much do you charge? And they suggested an amount to charge, and I thought to myself, but I just got out of graduate school, and you're telling me I should be charging this much? Are people really going to, and it's, you think about that and you question yourself, but like you said, people get out of their bed to drive to see you because they think you have value. That's exactly right, Lisa. And
I take off work. They bring their children, they do. They will not miss. The one lady's like, I don't care if I have to come see you on 8 o'clock. I am coming. And I'm
my
like,
gosh.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll be here.
It is so great to have that kind of validation, and I think we need that when we're first starting off into this private practice journey. We really need that to help kind of refuel our emotional tank and to help us believe in ourselves that, hey, we can do this. Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll work. It works. It's not easy, but it will work.
So, Lisa, if anybody wants to, any of the Journey followers want to contact you to ask you any questions about what we talked about today, how could they get a hold of you?
My website, I'm part of the community, which I think is wonderful that you started that.
Yeah, the Private Practice Journeys Facebook community.
And then I'm on Facebook, and then my website is Lisa, and it's CUEZ.com.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes again, so anybody who wants to contact you can. And I appreciate you coming on the podcast again, Lisa. And this is just the second time, like I said at the beginning, that we've had a chance to talk to one another. But I really appreciate these conversations. And really, I think that it's really cool that you're doing this because it's taking time to do this. And I don't... And I don't take that for granted. And I think that you're really providing a service to the community by coming on here month by month and talking about your own journey. And I think all of us really appreciate what you're doing.
Oh, I'm happy to help. I'm honored to be a part of it, and I think it's a wonderful service. Oh,
that's great. Well, I can't wait to talk to you next month.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, take care.
March on.
All right, take care. While listening to Lisa talk about her experiences, brings me right back to when I first started in private practice and not knowing anything. And there's just so much to learn, so much to do. And you're hoping that things are going to work out, but not quite knowing if they will or not. It's very nerve-wracking. But she's on such a great, she's done a great job and great start. 15 clients already. Isn't that amazing? That she's done that so quickly. And so it sounds like she knows what she needs to do. She's doing the things that she needs to do, especially in terms of marketing and developing relationships. I think that that's a key to being a successful private practitioner. Well, if you'd like the show notes for today's episode, please visit my website, chrisquarto.com, CHRISQUARTO.com. And also, if you haven't join the Private Practice Journeys Facebook community yet, please do so. It's a group of people who want to go into private practice or are currently in private practice and just want to learn from one another. So search that out, and I'd be happy to approve you for that community. I hope you have a great rest of the week.